also meeting the needs of the people who are very much like me, who can hardly read and are very neurodivergent. And when sitting at seminars like this, I used to be like, the fuck are they talking about? I don't know what any of these words are, let alone can I pronounce them. I'm gonna give you really tactical things for you to feel, and just forget your brain, take it and put it to the side, and just connect, okay? And then we're gonna feel somewhere of that bridge in the middle. Okay, so first thing I want you guys to see, and I'm gonna walk around with it a little bit, is this deep front line. Can everyone see this? If you can't, just like look. This is basically the deep front line. I'm gonna walk this way too. It is deep to the body, so it is the closest fascial line that is attached to the spine in multiple locations. So to give you another visual representation, it is a lot of jaw, mouth. It goes behind the head, into the internal workings of the mouth, goes down the throat, into the rib cage closest to the spine, goes into pelvic floor, attaches at the very bottom, and then goes down the legs, all the way down to the feet. Pretty important. Just a little bit. And where this really starts from, which is why if you were in Dr. Gina's, I love how just the Lord puts that together, because you guys saw how all of those developmental things and when they're supposed to be showing up on the table. The deep front line, does anyone have a guess when it starts to come into play? How old do you think? Right away. So the primitive gut is what is being developed within the 3rd to 4th week. So about 18 days old. Around that time, that primitive gut, I have a visual for my newbies. So you're in a little baby, you're like formation of just noodle and cells. And as you start to open into a more structure, we start getting that primitive gut developed. What will form around it is a fascial line in the connective tissue. Those start to build the organs. It's almost like a hammock for all of the organs to be developed and to hold it in together. So think about life force. Think about the consciousness being awakened in that little baby. That fascial line is the stabilization since 18 days of conception. They're absorbing, if you know anything about the fascia, which we're gonna go into a little bit. Frozen, if you ever, who watched Frozen 2? They were hit right on the head with water holds memory. Water holds the information, that fascia. There's so much research being, and I invite you to dive into it, because holy shit, it's going crazy in our profession right now. Everybody's learning about this buzzword fascia, so it's a really good way to understand of how to connect fascia to nervous system. There's a lot of research studies coming out now that the fascial system is actually communicating way faster than the nervous system. But are they communicating separately? It's one system. So that fascial system and nervous system are communicating back and forth, but from the very first 18 days old, that fascial system is starting to receive information. From who, mostly? Mom. Yes, there is some cells because they are housed in the placenta, which is mainly created by what? The male or the female? Anybody know? The man. So you have the placenta that is also giving information to baby from dad, and you have the own internal environment and the external environment of mom, creating your emotions, creating your feelings, creating everything neurochemical. And that fascia starts at 18 days, starts to store that. So think about, yes, if they see a chiropractor from birth or if they're already under care, that's amazing, but what happens if that never gets addressed? All of those patterns that when they come out in delivery, stay till they get older. That's where you're going to be seeing a lot of people. I don't see a lot of people that have seen chiropractors for years. It's just, we have a lot of transplants in Dallas, so some people are like, yeah, I saw a chiropractor somewhere, or I'm meeting a lot of older people that are just now getting these patterns, and they're like, hey, I'm just starting to see this. And I'm like, it's actually been going on since day 18. Are we late? No, we're just on time. But these are some things that you'll start to see in your office that were created a long time ago, but they don't play out and start to show into the surface until they're 18, 20, 30, 40, 50, 70. You know, it depends on when they start to understand and start to feel their own system. So going in to, we're gonna break it down very simple. What are gonna be the core stabilizers for the deep front line are gonna be jaw and mouth and throat. These are what I'm gonna be talking about these different centers in every single layer. So you have jaw, throat, and mouth. What then goes from there is diaphragm into pelvic floor, womb space, those areas. Okay? So going into the embryological origins, that's what we talked about, the primitive gut. This is why a lot of that internal mouth work is so important for baby. Because what is the top of the deep front line? Their internal mouth. That's where all of that fascia gets clogged up in this little womb space. As they come out, they feel it a big time in their jaws and big time in their pelvic floors or their like sacrum area. That's why these are the most attracted areas when working with babies. But we also cannot forget about the bridge in between. That is what I want you to visualize in this couple hours that we have here, is working with the bridge. You have these two major centers that are this mouth occiput region and the pelvic region at the other end, but a lot of times chiropractors forget about this bridge and how they relate together. So that's what I want you to start visualizing, as this like geometrical bridge shape that can move in dynamics to each other, okay? This then brings the question, if one side of that pillar bridge is related to the other. If one part of this piece starts to move, what naturally occurs? There's a mirroring aspect to this. And this is where I really dove in to a lot of the women's health. And seeing a lot of these women come in with cycle dysregulation, on birth control forever. I have migraines, I have jaw tension. And I started noticing a pattern on that intake form. Okay, I have no periods, or I have terrible cramps, but then I also get migraines about a week before my cycle. Why? As compression comes in, jaw starts to pull. That's why you see a lot of this coupled motions with jaw pain, tension. The pelvic floor is usually in some type of distortion. And this is not just for women, this is also for men. And so we're gonna be talking about both. However, in this men, you have a pelvic floor. But there are also organ systems within a woman that are exactly like the mouth structure. And this is where the big emotion, and we're not gonna stay here for long, but this is why so many women hold such deep emotion. Where is majority of the fascia in the body? Pelvic floor. And where else? Jaw and mouth. So these two correspond to each other. And when you can start to see this reflection of the vocal cords and the uvula, you can start to see the exact mirroring process of the actual structure and biomechanics and geometry. You guys see? And then you go over to the vocal cords and the pelvic floor. So you have a bit of a cheat sheet because they're designed exactly the same. They're a direct mirror for each other. Yeah? Let's get out of this. So going into a little bit of that hormone endocrine mirroring, what are some examples neurologically that could show up in a place being of deep compression? So say my mouth and my jaw are at either a deep, deep compression, meaning there's no space to function, or so at tension, there's this pulling and I'm at deep stress. What are some things that could show up specifically in the mouth, upper palate, lower palate, whatever, tongue, jaw, and throat? Or let's keep throat out of it, just jaw and mouth. What are some things that could show up Signal-wise. Tongue ties, yes. More so older. TMJ, for sure. What about like neurologically? What? No. Migraines, correct. What function is controlled by this? Say it. Biting, chewing. Think about everything that's up. What nerves do these connect to? Sensation of the face. This is where you're going to see a lot of your ADHDers, a lot of your neurodivergence. This is why if you go and see a lot of people who work with special needs, they're doing a lot of internal mouth work. Because a lot of this is the hypothalamic signals. Okay? A lot of this is the internal workings of the brain and what's around. Everything is going to be pulling towards or pulling away from. What emotions can be held here? What is just, everybody clench your jaws right now, and what immediately comes out? Anger. What also could come out? Frustration. If someone was holding for too long, why, and they're not being able to release that, what would show up? Control. I'm looking for one specifically, meaning someone squeezes my jaw tight. What could possibly happen? I have the inability to speak your words. A suppression. So the over-exaggeration of that is anger producing outward, is a very like you want, most of you when you did it, you're like, but the opposite of that is suppression. So a lot of the times we think of anger and you connect with these people and you're like, you're not really an angry person. There's actually a lower tone. And so that lower tone is going to be suppression. It is more of a compression state, whereas the anger and the outward higher tone is going to be more of a tensional state. Cool? What else could it be coupled with? We said neurological, like divergencies. What else? Think about the lower side, the mirroring aspect of suppression, of control, of anger. I'm not able to release. What would happen in the lower centers? GI stuff. The biggest one you'll see, if they're clenching their jaw, they're majority clenching their pelvic floor. Whatever happens above will happen below. Whatever happens below will happen above. So when the jaw is clenched, the other thing that gets clenched is what? Yo, booty hole! You get constipation because your butthole and your rectum literally go up inside of you and you cannot poop. These are the people that come in and they check constipation. I'm not able to poop, or I haven't pooped in like 5 days. Yes, rock their sacrum, but also go into, what are you not letting go? If you're having trouble going deeper and you maybe run a fast-paced office where a lot of stuff is really physical and you're having a hard time connecting with those emotional cues of like, let's just go a little bit deeper. I'm tired of doing, okay, you're good. Let's see you next week. How's the weather? Like, no, okay, I've noticed you're and I say it just like this. They're like, hey, I've been constipated for the last 5 days. I simply go, what are you not letting go of? It's that simple. What areas are you trying to control? Usually I know them by this point, or if maybe it's in the initial exam. Maybe it's their initial visit. I sit down with people for 45 minutes and I talk to them. Most of the time I understand their entire care plan by the time just talking to them the first 20 minutes. Because I know these emotional cues, but also where it lies physically. And I'm grounded in both of those to meet them and integrate them. Cool? Okay, let's move on. Hyoid and throat. So we're going to talk about the hyoid. A little forecast, we're going to do that adjustment. I know that's like the heavy hitter, I completely forgot this mic was on. Whoopsies, I just touched it. Sorry. We're going to talk about that osseously. That's going to be our osseous release because this is a massive artistry camp. I want to share with you the most artistic adjustment that I do in my office, and it's the hyoid osseously. Yes, it will make a sound. Okay, but first let's talk about the emotional cues for it. So hyoid and throat, what emotion lives here? Less anger. It could be some of it that goes down. It's not isolation anger, but it could be. Sadness is a great one. Would that be, is sadness more a compression or a tension? Compression. Think about sadness. Think about where you're going in sadness. Cool. The evolution of sadness is if it's an acute version of the sadness is acute. The chronic, the more I go into that compression, it'll turn into depression. What is something else that could show up here on the opposite side of suppression is tension. What could I have trouble with? Anxiety somewhere else. What is the one thing I use my throat for? To speak, express, outwardly project. People could have an issue with this, of overly outwarding project. Because if you're here, all you want to do is do this. Like you're going to fall forward eventually. And so all you're wanting to do, you're not able to sit and actually posture yourself into who you are. You're worried about everything out here. Okay? So suppression is a big one. Communication issues. These are a lot where you'll see some neurodivergent, if it's been happening for a while. I see a lot of autistic adults, which is fun. A lot of the times I'm dealing with throat because there's been such a compression that happens here. As they get to 30, it's already in their throat. What is another one, like insecurity? What is something, and this gives you, who in here is a firstborn girl? What do you love to do? What do you love to do? Have control. A lot of people pleasers. A lot of making sure everyone else is good, because a lot of the times if you are the first, you had some come after you and you were mama bear. And so you had to make sure all of your little kiddos were correct and making sure. So you're wanting to please, you're wanting to control, you're wanting to have the bubble around the people and being like, they're safe. But a lot of times we forget about ourselves. So there creates an insecurity with who we are as people. Cool? What are some things clinical that you would see maybe on an intake form? What function would be disrupted in the throat? Swallowing. Yeah? Yeah. Hard to swallow. Thyroid's what the heavy hitter. Every single time, I'm almost to the point now, because I see it's such a heavy pattern, is when I have a girl come in with a lot of thyroid function, a lot of autoimmune. A lot of the times they're coming in saying, I usually have a high histamine tolerance, or I have like a lot of histamine reactions or thyroid reactions, or like autoimmune random shit showing up. I say, where are you in the lineup? And every single time they're like, I'm the first girl of 4 or the first girl of 2. Like they are usually the mom of their crew. And that's the energetic pattern. So asking them about them, asking them, who are you? Tell me about your life. Because a lot of the times when you're talking to them, they're like, yeah, my sister did this. Or yeah, no, my brother. And they'll start talking about their family. They'll start talking about their kids. And I'm like, how are you? That conversation of meeting that emotional need with just a conversation starts to change and starts to set the stage for the adjustment, starts to set the stage for the release and the integration. Cool. Diaphragm. What do we think lives here? Everybody fold in like we were this morning. What would be hard to express if I'm in this stage? Joy, absolutely. Anxiety, fear. What is controlled here in the diaphragm? Breath. It's the one thing it's controlled for. Breath, and what else? What else lives here? Your stomach, your organs, your adrenals. So affecting fatigue, affecting people who live in chronic fear. Everybody take like 3 fast breaths in this position. That's what happens. So what things could show up on an exam or on like an intake form that somebody could come in saying, I have trouble with this and I need help? Shortness of breath. What else? Anxiety. Panic attacks. Nightmares. Anything that has to do with identity and fear lives here. So if they're not able to open that, or it's open too much, there's also the opposite effect of having too much outward expression and not being able to calm down. But living in such a state of fear, they have to just keep talking. Cool? These are your oversharers. I'm grounding them here. I'm like, feel this. Feel this. What systematically in symptom would show up here? High cortisol. Not yet there yet. That's a little bit lower.
Not with the adrenals?
It's more thyroid and lower. Digestive problems is what it's the cleanest. I told Katie this morning, and I forgot to tell it with you guys at the beginning. The deep front line is this magical thing that is like, these are all the perspectives, and this is just shortening it. This is the projective we're talking about. We're talking about one strong pattern that comes through my office. Yes, there are 1,000 other. So yes, you are correct. And you also have to think this as systemically. When one or two are coupled together, that's what creates the emotion coming through even stronger, is when that mirror aspect comes in and sets you into a whole spiral of how these things are related to each other. The biggest one that you're going to see here of just this isolation fixation is chronic digestive issues, panic attacks, and usually a chronic fatigue that they're unable to get out of, which if left turns into depression. So if you're seeing someone also on the opposite end of that, they come in with depression and you've been working with them for 3 months and they're starting to open out of that, digestive issues may randomly start to show up. Why? Because you're working through that, it starts to create that coupled motion of what also is compressed or at tension there. Cool? Let's go into a little bit lower. So we have pelvis, more pubic bone area that no one ever talks about. What emotions could be shaped here? Shame, biggest one. Biggest one. What else? Guilt. Wow, those are all in money. Those are the biggest two. And I would say there are others. Those are the primary ones. What do you think someone may warn you about coming in with those two things? Abuse. This is where the anterior pelvis and pelvic floor womb space is a lot of the times where you will see some of this sexual trauma. I'm very active on Instagram. When people come in my office, they know why they're coming. And so a lot of the times I'm getting this right off the bat. I have a question, which if you don't have it, doctors, on your forms, I would start asking them, is there anything else you would love to share with me? It can be anything that you've experienced in your life. When you ask that question, you see why they're really here. And so that's where I get a lot of the things, people telling me I was abused at this age, and I say, do you want to go into that? And sometimes they're like, nope, I just want my back pain to be gone. And I'm like, okay, we'll get there. But for right now, we're going to focus on where they would like to be focusing on. Eventually, it'll unravel. There's a big trust in that. What else could show up with sexually transmitted diseases or the energy of shame and guilt? This is someone that's like usually never talked about. Any like just random guesses? What? Not really. Great guess. I told you to guess. Bladder dysfunctions and yeast infections. You're going to have a lot of yeast infections, a lot of like sexually transmitted diseases that show up in either ulcers, either up or down. Why? Because they're related. Why do you think the ulcers go up and down? Why do you think they're just not randomly placed in the mouth? It's because those are two mirror images of each other. So with shame and guilt also comes with a lot of the, you'll see sexually transmitted diseases as well as like some bacterial urinary dysfunction. It goes into the emotional aspect of shame and guilt, of being like, what is shame and guilt? It feels, like I feel nasty, I feel gross, and that usually will replicate into bacterial or an infection of some sort, or a wart or blister thing, whatever. Anything else I want to go into there? No. Okay. Going a little bit, I do want to isolate womb space in this. These two, they're really close together. But what also specifically for the aspect of men and women show up in the womb space. Men, you have wombs, by the way. Fun fact. What would show up here? Infertility, yes, absolutely. Both men and women. I love that that's becoming a conversation now, that it is not just the woman's. When you're seeing fertility issues, make sure you get both of them in and talk to both of them, because a lot of the times, which I'm glad we're creating education around it, it is both, or it's one or the other. And a lot of the times the women feel that. What else could show up in the womb space? What is like the more medicine? Hormonal imbalances, yes, for sure. That kind of goes into the fertility. The big one I'm looking for is ancestral emotions. This is a lot of the times, and this goes into a little bit more of evolutionary care. When you're starting, if you have deeper practices, a lot of like my network people and like energetic people will start to understand this a little bit more. Not saying that it doesn't show up in physical offices, but when you're bringing people through evolution and consciousness, you start healing all of your stuff, and then family relations. Lineage relations is located in the womb space. A lot of deeply rooted patterns, whether they are nurture or nature, show up in the womb space. Why? Especially for women and men, because you were carried by a woman. Everybody in here was carried by a woman and lived in a womb space that had its own energy and own stuff. Fun fact, when you are exiting vagina canal and you are coming into this world, or someone slices you open and just says hello and peels you back, a lot of the times there is a detox of process from mom. Everything in the canal will purge and detox into baby. Scary, right? This is why it's so important, and I love that Dr. Gina mentioned it. This is why the mom's internal environment and external environment is so important. This is why you are seeing a rapid increase of neurodivergent kids, is because a lot of the moms were given vaccines with a lot of stuff that their body does not know how to naturally process. So when they're giving birth, or you have moms on Ozempic that are giving birth, all of that is being detoxed into baby. Yes, it transfers through placenta. It also gets detoxed in birth. This is why majority of my practice shows up as when and this is why I'm starting to get a lot of teenagers. I want to work into the maiden. I have 3 stages that I see women, and I like to see where they are at in the stage. We have a maiden, pre-pregnancy. How are we prepping? How are we nourishing our body? But also, how are we detoxing all of the crap we have accumulated emotionally, relationally? Who's been up in there? Guys, same thing. I didn't think I was going to go here, but here we are. When you are exchanging, you're also exchanging an internal relationship. You're exchanging energy, whether there's a sweater on or not. Energetically, you are creating a connection, and sometimes that connection needs to be dismantled or cut before having birth. Because all of the emotions that your brain, because your brain is also connected through the spinal cord with a network of nerves that come out and communicate everywhere. It's all connected, and it remembers those emotions, and it transfers to baby. That's why you have that beautiful pattern of like girls and guys of like, I had that type when I was a kid, and your teenage daughter. Does anybody have teenagers? That's why when your teenagers are like, you see the red flag in their partner in high school and you're like, that was mine. That's some of the energetic resonance that you have expressed on the kiddo. They're not just picking that. They don't just love blondes with big booties or hot frat guys with massive muscles. That's not just like happen to be their type. A lot of that can be from you. And so this is where in that maiden stage, I'm working with detoxing and nourishing. Setting up the housing that is gonna hold baby. The next one is the mother. We are pregnant, woo! How are we doing? How are we still continuing to nourish and house baby? But also how are we learning how to self-regulate and create a clarity? Now that I am clear, how do I maintain this clarity? How, if more stress comes in because I'm a living adult on this stimulating earth, how do I find an adaptability of when I'm now faced with this same pattern, how do I choose this direction instead of the direction I've been walking on for so long? And then it also goes into strengthening and getting ready for birth and getting ready for postpartum. Start to understand tools before I get there. Before, if something in our magical ideal tension state, if something comes in and disrupts, how are we going to adapt? How are we going to then create safety? After that, once we're done having babies and we've grown them up and they've lived and I've been the exact leader, how do I go into a crone of creating a legacy, creating or rediscovering an identity? Specifically where I am in Dallas, there are a lot of rich mamas that have lots of babies, and there are a lot of stay-at-home moms that their entire life, and it doesn't have to be in these rich communities, it's moms that their entire world is their kids. And there's nothing wrong with that, but when those kids grow up and they have an empty nest, and they've been in that phase for 20 years, sometimes they don't remember who they are, or sometimes they've changed so much that they don't recognize or know how to integrate who they are as a person. And they're coming out of this new world, and how do I know who I am, but also how do I know how to talk to this person that may be a stranger? Because we haven't connected, because we have 6 kids, and we gotta get dinner on the table, and we gotta get the kids to school, and he has an art project. These are real world things that happen in people's lives. And it's like, yes, we have a clear nervous system, but how can we integrate emotions and how we perceive the world into the regulation of our families? And with love, it usually starts with the mama. It usually starts with the relational aspect of how is the man leading the household, but also how is the mom nourishing and how that partnership works, because both are contributing to each kiddo, which if you look at the kiddos, that's also us. We are also a kiddo somewhere in that lineage. Cool? Okay, that was a rant. Okay, we're still good on time. What are biggest thing that I really started playing around with? If you know anything about my story, I am probably the least clinical-minded person ever. So that's been my biggest, because I just ripped KTC every single weekend and was like, "Fuck it, I don't need school. I'm just gonna keep going to these camps every weekend." So I missed a lot of the education portion. So my biggest lesson as a doc has been learning how a lot of these medications are chemically affecting the body. So knowing everything that would show up emotionally, expressionally, and maybe on an intake form, what are some medications that could show up with jaw and mouth? Think specifically of what it's functioning. Allergy medication, sinuses, because of the sinuses in the mouth, yes. Migraine medication. What's another one that almost everybody's eating like candy nowadays? I have my own perspective about nicotine. Adderall is what I'm looking for. Adderall, Vyvanse, these high stimulators. It's working with the hypothalamic signals. Everybody's on Adderall. When you start looking at these Adderall people, you will feel a tone of like high vibrational, like, and that's what their internal head feels like. It's crazy. I'm in Dallas. We got a lot of coke heads. I feel it all day long. And that's something I'm like, hey, no judgment, bruh, but we got to slow down on the coke. because their mouth and their jaw feels like a straight concrete wall. And it's just high tone, high sympathetic tone. So when I come in, I have my CA circle the medications and she writes, which like she's learning too, it's fun to get your office. She'll write Adderall, check jaw, check mouth, check neurological. How are you focusing at work? Do you feel that, how long do you notice before you wanna take caffeine or you wanna take Adderall again? Or, oh, I just gotta get that bump. Which I don't condone, but it is what I see a lot. I see a lot of finance bros. Going into throat and hyoid, we talked about this. We talked about the disease that it usually associates with. What is the medication that I'll see on the form? Throat. Thyroid medications, any thyroid medications. Also what you'll see is a bulge. You can usually spot these people. When they lay on the table and they have a lot of extension in their neck, this bulges. You'll see it really high off. Gut, what is some medications that I'll see? Maybe, I don't know what that is.
Like antacid kind of stuff.
Thank you, yes. An anti-acid, for sure. So when I'm asking people, I'm like, how's your diet? What's going on? Especially if they're like, I don't want to talk about my emotions. I'll be like, well, tell me about yourself. What do you eat during the day? What's your like morning lunch look like? I'm like, do you do movement after? Like, do you feel good after you eat? And they're like, no, I pop those little Tums like crazy. I know I'm going to check in with diaphragm. And then my next question is, how is the anxiety levels? Or how is the stress levels? Usually they're sitting here breathing. They're like, I'm good, doc. And then you can't breathe. So yeah, antacids, gut stuff. They're usually the ones that ask about parasite cleanses. Easy. Pelvis, easy one, wound space. What are we looking for? All that always shows up on paperwork. Birth control, yeah. These will also have older men or even younger men. It's becoming crazy now, which we won't go into that whole conspiracy of testosterone and growth hormone with the men. Get them off of it. Get them off of it. Get them off of it with love. If they are really looking to boost testosterone, ask them if they like tobacco, smoking cigars, or eating tobacco is the best way to raise testosterone levels. That can be an alternative. Get them off of testosterone. Because usually there is a combination of growth hormone that is implanted without them knowing. Their heart can enlarge if it's taken over a while, or if they're doing a lot of activity. These are gonna be your power lifters, your performance geeks that are getting so big. A lot of the times you'll start to notice, you'll adjust their thoracic and you can feel there's a little bit of heart enlargement. Be careful with it, because it will raise their blood pressure and there is opportunities for complications there. Cool? Alternative to that, tell them to smoke a cigar. Men and women, okay? Fun fact, I got roided up on some testosterone because I'm also a combo practitioner, and I was doing I was doing a lot of ceremonies, and I was having like 5 cigars a day. And if any of you knew me during then, I was like, hey, what's up, bro? Like my voice dropped like 9 octaves. And I was like, I ended up getting my levels tested because I was like, my cycle wasn't like it like was doing really well, and then it stopped going on and my testosterone was through the roof. I cut back on the cigars, it balanced out.
How high was it, out of curiosity?
Huh?
How high was it?
Oh, I fucking don't know. It was on the sheet, I don't know. I don't remember. I'm not very good with numbers. What's up? Yes. You will see antidepressants. Oh, shit. This is the fun part. It depends on how long it's been there. Early stages starts as sadness, starts as this patterning. And then as it starts to close and close and close, then it goes into the pelvis, and it's usually like back, sacrum, coccyx. Because there is no energy from, you think about what is depression. Is it like, ah? No, it's like, you're very low, you're very heavy. A lot of time they're sinking into the ground. It's usually, and if you're on the feeling wavelength side, you'll do a scan of the body and the only thing you'll feel is that like lower coccyx, because that's where all of their energy is vibrating. Ideally, you want to see full vibration up and down the spine and like around and this like John Martinez does it really well. He talks about the heart space and how it's like a cross, and how there's this up and down energetic resonance, and how it goes across and they meet in the middle. When they're in a deep, deep state of depression that's been forever, it's usually just here. And it's usually just vibrating right here. This is why people with depression usually have a really hard time connecting with their heart. Relationally, if you are in relation with someone that has depression, it's hard for them to connect. It's hard for them to feel. It's hard for them because everything up here is gone. Cool. Okay, a little more physical. What's up? Question? Oh, bless you. Bless you. Okay, going into a little bit more of a clinical aspect of like posture and function, okay? This is what everybody understands. And you can see people come in, they're like, no emotions, I feel none, leave me alone. I'm like, okay, cool. There's gonna be people, I do not just see vibrating weirdos, okay? I see, strangely enough, a lot of really basic, fuck no, I don't wanna talk about emotions. And I'm like, okay, how do I train this language, but also how do I meet them where they're at? Because if I start talking about chakras and energetic frequencies that are coming off of them and their deep distortion pattern with their mother on their left side, they're gonna be like, bye, especially in the South. Like we're from Texas. I'm gonna go into something that they understand because that's the language that they need to receive from at that moment. I go into posture. Everybody understands posture. Everybody is sitting at their desk going, oh my gosh, my back hurts, my neck hurts, like I look ugly and fat. This is where I start to talk and educate about volumes. So in these centers, everybody stand up for me. Just kind of get some space. I'm gonna stand on here because I'm short and I want you guys to see me. I want everybody to just connect with your pelvic floor, so feet about shoulder width apart, toes slightly inward, knees bent just a little, almost like you have this like little sag in you. I want your, okay, pubic bone, tailbone, and butthole. The space in between that is the beginning and opening of your pelvic floor, okay? Ladies, it's where your vagina is. Men, you know what's there. I want you to center that over the ground. So start to play with like really far posterior and really far anterior and find that neutral position where if there was like a gremlin coming out of the ground, he could just be like, and go through your mouth. You're welcome for that visual. Good, let your hands stack. From here, I want you to like anchor your pelvis, and you can touch it if you need to. Anchor your pelvis, and then just start to rotate just your rib cage out. Try to keep your head and your throat aligned, but just the rib cage to the right. Now take a big breath here. See how it's very disruptive? Now fold just a little bit forward, staying on that right side. Now take a big breath here. Notice, I want everybody to look straight ahead in this position. What do you feel in your anterior spine? Or, anterior cervicals. Stretch. It feels very at tension. Now I want you to, from this position, look to your jaw towards the sky. Jut your chin up. Yeah. Come back down. Yeah. Okay, cool. So now, anchor back in, anchor pelvis, anchor your rib cage. Going to the left, I just want your throat to jut out. Now take a big breath in. You feel that restriction in your throat automatically. Automatically there. Now close down the throat and take a big breath. I'm not even able to breathe this. I'm not even able to go down lower in my tummy. It's straight rib cage up. Come back and, do you guys see that mirror image of each other? Of when you disassociate, and this is, I feel maybe I'm wrong, but Katina always talks about it, and she might have talked about it, the volumes of where she stacks those balloons on top of each other. And when you move one, the other one is gonna mirror and start to move. Cool? So this is how I talk to people. How are you breathing? Where do you feel disconnected? If you had, the thing that I love talking to people, and they love it, and they start to understand posture stacking better, is I say, if I had this like machete and I chopped you in half, what portion would work better? Everybody sit down. Everybody sit down. Yeah. Everybody sit down. Everybody take a deep breath in and close your eyes. If I sliced you in half with a machete, and you're sitting next to each other, what side is breathing? It's usually your chest or your pelvis. If you are like, I'm vibrating both, bitch, awesome. You're connected. Most of the world is not. Cool? You can open your eyes. Yeah, most of the world doesn't really feel that. So let's go. This is gonna be the pattern that comes in as emotional and chemical. There is a physical pattern, and this goes into the postural stacking. What is the biggest job that this deep front line tension shows up in? The biggest job that you'll see. They come in and they're like, hey, desk jobs. This is the pattern, and I'm not gonna talk about it too long. If you wanna know about the physical pattern, you can find it at KTC level 1. It's taught at every level 1, this deep front line pattern. And Jordan is actually here. Jordan Bottom was the first to relate. If you've ever seen that us actually draw it out with bungee cords, I invite you to do it. Go home, I'll send you the deep front, I'll send you the anatomy trains and start to get bungee cords and attach them to each other and start to see how your body relates. But what I always tell these people that come in and they're like, dude, doc, I work a desk job. And they're like, I just feel it in my neck, I feel it in my low back. These are the people who do not want to talk about emotions at all because the state of their nervous system is here. And then they're here for 8 hours. What neurologically does my brain start to communicate to my body? I'm a chair. My body's like, I'm not a human, I'm a chair. So it starts to make you a chair. It starts to shorten the fascia, tighten the muscles. So then when you stand up, they're like, ah. And then that is what shows up energetically. They start here, and maybe it starts out emotionally, maybe it starts out physically, or maybe it starts out chemically. That's the beauty of chiropractic, of figuring out where is this person specifically, what started it, the chicken or the egg? Did it start from the emotional childhood? Or did it start from, I sat in a freaking cubicle that was gray with no sunlight, and these lawyers were yelling at me, and I stared at words all day. And then as I got up, I have zero expression in my life because all I've seen was gray and words on a white paper. It's like, what came first? And that's where you get to start. That's why as chiropractors, we get to start seeing people's actually real lives, okay? Cool beans. Let's go to the table. I'm killing time. Let's fucking go. If any of you have ever done a seminar with me, you know I love to freaking, or just in general, I love to yap. I started a TikTok about yapping. So, everybody, let's get on the table because I know sitting for this long is fucking boring.